Alicia Jackson, licensed professional counselor. We're doing reaction videos for Ready to Love Season 4. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and peruse, as I have lots of psychoeducation out there, tools to help us learn and grow and heal. So let's get into it. Now, I want to be honest with you, giving my disclosures. Do I recommend going on a dating show that is casted and possibly scripted, and people having different motives to going on said show to meet somebody, to have a real connection and make a meaningful relationship with? I don't know necessarily, but it is a place I think that we can use the information to learn and grow from. So, I always say that the best experience is someone else's, because you can utilize it to learn and grow. And that's really the reason why I really like shows like Ready to Love. I like to see interactions, how we interact, and to learn from those interactions. So let's dig in. So we meet all the cast members. There's 20 cast members, and I don't want to like go through each single cast member because I think that would be kind of boring, but I want to kind of talk about just the different people different interactions that I found to be interesting. So I think one of the first interactions was Tashia. I believe her name is Tashia. She is 33. She is a entrepreneur. She's a tech startup founder. And Carrington, he's 38, and he's a marketing firm CEO. And they had a connection in where she was just being kind of it seemed like she was asking a lot of questions, right? She was asking a lot of questions of him. And he was like communicating with her, but she was just trying to try to see if what he was saying was really like genuine and real. Like, was he really interested in having in building a real serious relationship? And honestly, there are ways to ask questions, right, to see if the person is genuine. And at the same time, the person can tell you anything, and it's up to really their actions and their behavior. So if he's telling you he's into this and you keep asking him over and over again different ways, it's gonna be annoying. So I feel like she said that she's a very traditional girl. She likes to let the men come to her. And so maybe because this is something that is out of her norm, like being forward, being more assertive in the initiating dating process, and maybe she's kind of out of like a fish out of water. Like, she doesn't really understand what could be offensive or what could not be offensive. She does seem to come off pretty strong, and I don't know if because she's more old-fashioned, so she said, and used to letting men come to her, that this is kind of like an awkward setting for her. So she's trying to get to know a lot of people, and she was later towards the end, she was really offended because she said she had 5 men in her phone, their phone numbers, but then also was the second to last person to get voted off, and so she was in danger of getting voted off the show. So I think that's what's happening. I don't know. Last season, I don't know if you guys watched last season, but there was kind of this big kind of thing about 1 million plus size. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I know there's tons of men who love plus size women. Naeem, we'll talk about him a little bit later, but he talked about how he loved plus size women. So I don't think that her size had anything to do with it. I really think that, again, she was just not knowing how to engage in this setting. And this is a weird setting, so I'm not mad at her at all. This is a weird setting, 20 people being put in this speed dating thing and having to initiate conversations and not knowing how to do it. Speaking of not knowing how to do it, let's talk about Corey. Corey is the gym owner who's 40 years old. He said that he is a whiz at at engaging with women, especially online. He just copies and pastes his responses to all of his women that he's talking to online, and that's how he gets the dates. Excuse me. And it seems like that's also what he did in this situation. Oh, Corey. So I'm gonna give Corey some grace. Even though there's a part of me that's struggling, I'm gonna give Corey some grace. It seems like he is definitely, even though he's 40 years old, seems to be some immaturity there, where he's not understanding, or may not. I don't want to say that he's not serious, because I don't know. It just doesn't seem that maybe he's as genuine as as he as he is trying to portray himself to be. It's just very like, are you, hey, like, so the person he connected with, Carrie, she was sitting with a few people, and he said, hey, I forgot to give you something earlier, which was actually not true, because I, at least unless it was edited out, I didn't see that he gave her something. He was just like, hey, can I, did you have your phone so I can give you, get your number and give you mine, and then are you available Friday, Saturday, Sunday? It was just so mechanical, and it didn't seem like he was really truly trying to connect with people. And so I don't know if this is a defense mechanism. I don't know if he's trying to build up his roster. I don't know what his motives are. So we're still learning, Corey. It's only been the first episode, and again, this is highly edited TV, right? But these he did learn his lesson, because he was in the bottom two, and I feel I don't know why the ladies chose to keep him, but they did. And so we'll see if he learns from his lesson. It seems like he did. He's realizing that was a big mistake. And so I'm hoping that he can start to interact with the women on a more genuine way, instead of copying and pasting. That seems just so high school, so middle school, like, do you like me? Check the maybe box, it's just very very, very young behavior. So I'm hoping that he can show up as 40-year-old Corey, and hopefully make some genuine connections with these beautiful ladies they have for him. There was one interaction that I felt that was very intriguing. And that was Camille. Camille, she's 42. She's a teacher. She during the casting video, if you watch that, I think she said she'd been engaged 3 times. And her and Cornelius, say that, Cornelius made a nice little connection. He was feeling her. He was like, she's scrumptious. That's nice when it calls you scrumptious. Okay, he was feeling her, and she was in her confessional. She had already jumped to, they are in a relationship, and they're gonna have a child. And I was like, whoa, that was fast. But then she also has this kind of so he assumed, because his name is Cornelius and her name is Camille, so he's like, oh, Cornelius, Camille, both start with C's. And she was like, my name starts with a K. And like, she rolled her eyes, and I was like, oh no, like, dear heart, how would he have known that? That just seemed like a lot of energy for something that small. So I'm a little concerned. And then seemed very possessive of him. There was a situation where he offered someone else a bottle of water, and she had an attitude about that. And then at the end, I think Courtney, lady with the beautiful fro, she said that she made a connection with Cornelius that seemed very nice, because they are both Southern backgrounds. So that was a nice connection for them. And she said she made a connection, and then she was like, I think she said, like, that's my husband or that's my boyfriend. And I was like, oh no. And so I think sometimes the mistake that people do make, and I don't fault them, because again, this is a very, very difficult situation to be in, this whole reality dating situation. Like, you're coming there to connect with multiple people in order to screen them down to make a decision about who you want to connect with. And so one thing that I noticed a lot on this show, happened, I think maybe like 2 seasons ago, like people get really possessive, and it's a turnoff because then the person's like, hey, you're trying to control my decision to meet other people. And so it's like, I want Camille to be, secure in herself, to know that if Cornelius is really, really feeling her, he's going to choose her. And if he's not, he's not. And yes, that might hurt, but then we'll know that he made his decision without you trying to influence it or control him. And no one likes being controlled. So I'm hoping that she can get that together. But that's what it seems like is happening there. Libba. She was the one who was unfortunately eliminated. But she was married for 20 years. And so listening to that kind of gave me a little insight about her, because she's like re-entering the dating scene, and trying to figure things out. And she came off like very, very strong. And so maybe it's because she's, still kind of learning how to navigate the waters, but she came off like just very strong, very high energy, seemed like very intense almost. And seemed to like overshare a lot of her information about herself. And so I don't know if she is like just not knowing what to share and what not to share. If she's trying to like reassess her boundaries as a person, like if she's still trying to figure herself out. But that's just my first impression of her, that she's just like very just like oversharing a lot. The tattoo conversation with Frank, and she was, sharing where the tattoos were, and even he was joking with her, but he seemed pretty uncomfortable in the conversation too. So, he was just like, oh, I have them all over. And then, she was saying where they were, and then using like very young language to describe like where her tattoos were, so, but yeah, so that's Libba, and it's unfortunate she was voted off, but she did say that she didn't feel like any of the men there, she made a connection with. So hopefully her connection will be out in the world, and we wish her the best. Let's see. Talk about some connections that we liked. Can we talk about that? Okay, so connections that I liked a lot were Dante and Shiloh. They're like, he's 38, that's nice, and she's 33. She's felt very vulnerable with him. They both have like traditional, they both have some similar cultural experiences from Trinidad and Tobago, that she was sharing about her upbringing and how she's like healing and working through herself, because she's a intimacy coach. And he was just like open and met her transparency, and that was a nice little moment, a nice little connection. I was like, oh, look at y'all. Okay, getting excited, but I learned from this show not to get too excited, because you never know what's happening in reality. Okay, but that was a nice little connection I liked. Another nice little connection I liked was Sabrina and Walter. Talk about vulnerability and intimacy. Okay, she was sharing about her being a caregiver, and then he was talking about his mother and the death of his mother, and how she died in his arms, and they had a connection. She was able to like get some some support from him, and she just felt so vulnerable, and it was beautiful. And I was just like, oh, this is nice, this is cute. And so that was a really nice little connection that I saw, and I was like, let's see what happens. Okay. I get excited. I love love, and I love when it happens, especially Black love. So yes, that was beautiful. I did like Courtney and Cornelius. I did like that connection. I'm sorry, Camille. I like their connection. Again, they both had like the little Southern roots. I liked his little talking about how he was, trying to connect with people of color when he was, surrounded by people who were non-color, and trying to navigate that, and then her becoming a mother and how that, you know, showed up in her last relationship. So there was just a lot of sharing they had. And anytime I see two brown people being vulnerable with each other, it excites me. Okay, I'm just call me the therapist. But I think those were the connections I liked. Oh, we got to talk about Lamont. We do have to talk about Lamont. I really like Lamont. So again, you know, I'm noticing a trend. Like, so Lamont is, he said he's been single for 7 years, and he learned from most of those reasons. The reason why he was single for 7 years because he's been closed off. And so, it seems like, because he was really truly trying to make a genuine connection. So that's the thing that was kind of frustrating me, that Corey stayed and he left, because it's still a question mark on whether Corey is really genuinely trying to make a connection. Lamont seemed to be. He just didn't know how to do it. And so he was reciting poetry, which may work for some, may not, may not for others. For the first meet, I just think that's maybe not the best. He can just say he is a poet, and then he was using, sexual language in his poetry. So I think that's kind of where he kind of, went off, off, and maybe rubbed some of the women the wrong way. But yeah, I wish they would have gave him a little bit more grace and just gave him some feedback and kicked off Corey. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what Corey does. He might surprise us, or he might not. And I think that's it. I think that's it for this season, for the people that, like, again, the connections that I liked, and the things that kind of stood out to me. We'll see how these couples connect, to see. But there's, I think they have a really good cast of individuals. So I'm excited. So stay tuned for my reaction for our Ready to Love Season 4, Chocolate City, as they call it. Okay? And see you next week. Peace.